associate pastor here. Mike's enjoying one more Sunday of vacation with his family, getting some chance to rest and relax. So I get to come up here and tell you the end of the story of David's life. Sounds exciting? So here it is. He dies, all right? That was easy. You told me it was going to be a difficult sermon. But no, here's the thing. We're going to be in 1 Chronicles 29 today, and that is the end of 1 Chronicles. At the very end, it says David died, and he did a good thing, and he was a good king, and everybody loved him. But before we talk about David, I need you to know something. Here in a couple weeks, I'm going to be married for 15 years. Awesome. And I just want you to know that I love my wife very much. I think she's great. She's amazing, especially with our kids. And I want to be in her presence as often as I can, all right? I like date night. That's a lot of fun. I like any time after we put the children to bed. That's my favorite time of the day, all right? We like to watch Chuck and eat ice cream, and that's good. And that is a good evening for us. You know what I also like? I loved going to my parents' house, and my mom says, hey, we need some milk. And I was like, I'll go. And Christina and I get to go to Walmart and get milk without children. It's just a wonderful thing, just to be with my wife and, not have to share all that attention, And I look forward to those moments where we can just be together. Heck, I didn't really sacrifice, but I did not go to Comic-Con this year. And instead, I went to Homeschool Con with my wife on Friday. It's not nearly as exciting. Standing in line to get on the escalator is not nearly as fun as standing in line to go see someone that I think is really cool, like Spider-Man or something. But it was okay. But I like to be with Christina. The fact is that I adore her, and here she came in. She's going to be embarrassed now. And I just want to be with her as much as possible. Now, for the last several weeks, we've been talking about David and how he probably was the most celebrated king in Israel. They always talk about how David was wonderful, David was great. And he was known as a man after God's own heart. David never let his past failures define him, too. He was one of those guys, he messed up a couple of times. I mean, he's known for adultery, murder. He was actually pretty terrible parent. He didn't do a very good job raising most of his kids. It caused a civil war because he was such a bad parent. But he never let those failures define him. The thing that we see over and over throughout the life of David is that he was a man who was after God's heart. He pursued God above everything. He wanted the presence of God in his life, and he wanted God to be real to him in every situation that he was in. He so desired to have God's presence in his life that he decided that he was going to build a temple. And back in that day, man, building a temple, that showed everyone that God's presence was here in this city and in this town. And it was a special place. And he made all these plans, started to work on it. And a prophet of God came to him and said, hey, David, you can't build the temple. You're not allowed to, but your son can. So go ahead and make your plans, but just don't do it. You have to build it. He's like, okay, fine. I can't do it, but I so want the presence of God in my life, and I so want my people to know God, that I'm going to make all these plans ready so that they can have the presence of God by the symbol of this temple there. And he did the next best thing. He planned, he built, he put all the plans together. I thought about getting, the blueprints and just bringing you the blueprints of the temple and say that's as good as I could do, But, I'm not really artistically whatever. I can't draw things very well. I leave that to my kids. They're much better at that than me. So he does the next best thing, and he desired the presence of God to be with his people, Israel. Everything. So he gets everything prepped. And so today we're in 1 Chronicles 29. He knows that the end is coming for him. He knows that, hey, I'm old now, and I've got to get to the end of my life, and I got to kind of set things up. And so because he so wanted the people to experience the presence of God, he's getting everything ready. And here's what he does. 1 Chronicles chapter 29. He says, and David the king said to all the assembly, Solomon, my son, whom alone God has chosen, is young and inexperienced, and the work is great. For the palace will not be for man, but for the Lord God. So I have provided for the house of my God, so far as I was able, the gold for the things of gold, the silver for the things of silver, and the bronze for the things of bronze, the iron for the things of iron, and wood for the things of wood, besides great quantities of onyx and stones for setting, antimony, colored stones, all sorts of precious stones and marble,
Moreover, in addition to all that I have provided for the holy house, I have a treasure of my own of gold and silver, and because of my devotion to the house of my God, I give it to the house of my God. 3,000 talents of the gold of Ophir, and 7,000 talents of refined silver for overlaying the walls of the house, and for all the work to be done by craftsmen, gold for the things of gold, and silver for the things of silver, who they will offer willingly, consecrating himself today to the Lord. Okay, so you see what happens? He's like, hey, I got to get all this stuff ready. And just so you know, everyone, Solomon, he's kind of young. He doesn't know how to do this kind of thing, but I've been making these plans. So here's my plans, and here's all the stuff that I have ready for it. I have tons of gold and just things just piled up. Like, man, that's some treasure chest, all right? Hobbit kind of level here. We got, what's the dragon's name? We got Smog, thank you. Smog is pile of gold going on here, all right? And he's ready. He's got all these things. And then he says, oh, so all of this stuff is ready for building the temple. And besides the stuff I put in the royal treasury, I have my own treasury on the side, okay? I have all this other stuff that I'd like to give. All told, in today's standards, essentially, David donates about $400 million to help build the temple, all right? Pretty impressive gift, I think. I don't know that I have the earning power to ever donate that much money, but that's impressive. That's a pretty significant gift. So then the leaders, so he says, here's what I've done. What are you going to do? Then the leaders of fathers' houses made their free will offerings, as did also the leaders of the tribes, the commanders of thousands and of hundreds, and the officers over the king's work. Basically, anybody in charge of anything decided to give too. Oh, David could do it. We could do something too. They gave for the service of the house of God 5,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. And whoever had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the house of the Lord in the care of Jehiel the Gershonite. Then the people rejoiced because they had given willingly, for with a whole heart they had offered freely to the Lord. David the king also rejoiced greatly. Lots of stuff. Jackpot, piling it on. Here we go. Do you realize what they gave was more than what David gave by himself? Okay, so now you can do some math. Some of you are math majors and like that kind of stuff, all right? We're up there in big numbers, all right? Like nines and stuff, all right? And like lots of zeros at the end. I don't know them. I'm an English major. Got me on the math. So anyway, so you've got this going on here. His generosity was lavished, and it served as a catalyst for the other people. The other people are like, man, we got to do this too. This is pretty amazing to think that God's presence is so important that David has given a lot of his royal treasury away, his personal wealth away, so that we can experience the presence of God. Well, I want to experience the presence of God too. Let's see what we can give. And they start donating more and more and more and piling it on. And they're giving, inspired more giving, and it just overload here. I mean, this is just a lot of stuff that's been giving. One guy I read said that the total amount given by this time was probably in the billions. I mean, we're talking lots and lots of modern day equivalency of money given here. David set an example for the giving, and others followed him. You know, it's just impressive here. And he did this. Who does David give this to? Who gets the glory here? Who gets the honor here? Right, if you have your little note sheet, it says to honor God. That's the answer for all the questions today, all right? So now you know, all right? Anytime I ask to honor God, and you'll be fine. I just say that back to me. I know you're looking at the note sheet. So he did it not to glorify himself. It's not to glorify David, but he's doing it to honor God. He's pointing his people, hey, I'm giving because I want people to realize the presence of God is a valuable thing. It's something that we can sacrifice for. It's something that we can put aside our own preferences and our own wants and our own desires so that others can experience the presence of God. You know, if this church keeps growing, you're not going to fit in this building for very long. Just so you know. I was here a couple weeks ago and we ran out of chairs. I don't know if you know that. There were no more chairs. None whatsoever, okay? It was pretty crazy. I'm like, man, I haven't had this problem in a while. I don't know what to do here. They'd be like, well, I guess we could pull the couches out, you know? They get the pastor's desk. You could sit on there or something, right? We were out of space. And if that kind of thing continues to happen, if we still desire the presence of God and we're still investing in our friends and we're still inviting them to come and be a part of what's going on here, we're going to see this place will fill up. And this will not be a suitable location for us to continue to proclaim the presence of God. It's not. Sorry. It gets comfortable sometimes, but I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. And so we're going to have to look at this. What are we going to do? Maybe we'll have to do a building campaign. We're talking maybe that's what has to happen next. I don't know. But we're going to have to give. We're going to have to really desire God's presence if we really want to continue to see his glory proclaimed to the people around us. That's part and parcel of it. That's what we're supposed to do. But here's the thing. Why did David give? To honor God. That was still the right answer, okay? I'm not trying to trick you here. To honor God. Right. Here's what he says next. He said, okay, verse 10, he picks up, therefore, so he gives all of this stuff gets piled up, and he's standing on top of the huge pile of treasure, Uncle Scrooge kind of thing going on, dive into the gold, all right? Therefore, David blessed the Lord in the presence of all the assembly. You guys get it. He said, you guys understand this. You guys know the presence of God is so important. The building of this temple is so important so that we recognize that God is with us. You understand? So he begins to pray and he blesses God for this. And David said, blessed are you, O Lord, the God of Israel, our Father, forever and ever. Yours, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty, for all that is in the heavens and in the earth is yours. It's like, man, he couldn't come up with any more words, right? Every word he could think of in there. Yours is everything, God, and this and this and this and this. I'm an English major, couldn't think of that many words at one time, but he gives it, pour it on there. He said, yours is the kingdom, O Lord, and you are exalted as head above all. Both riches and honor come from you, and you rule over all. Remember, he's standing on top of this pile of gold saying, this came from you, and you got even more than this. You're an incredible God. We want to have that presence. We want to be around you. In your hand are power and might, and in your hand it is to make great and to give strength to all. And now we thank you, our God, and praise your glorious name. But who am I, and what is my people that we should be able thus to offer willingly? Man, this big pile of gold, man, what are we even saying? This is nothing compared to what you have given to us. For all things come from you, and of your own have we given you. We're giving back what you've given to us anyway. Man, can you imagine? Just imagine, I know some of you want to do this. You are Uncle Scrooge for a second, and you are swimming through that big vault of gold coins, right? You got that? Remember that picture? The DuckTales? Oh, come on now. That Uncle Scrooge has been around for a long time. I know there's lots of people here that remember this. This means yes, all right? Be a nerd for a second, okay? Comic-Con still goes on one more day today, and I know. I'm keeping track, you know. So imagine that you're on this pile, and you recognize, man, as you're swimming through the gold, you're saying, man, this is just a small portion of what God has. God has so much more. Here, I'm able to be on this big pile, have my own little dragon gold going, and you have much more than that. God has much more than that. And the presence of God is worth so much more than even the small amount that I've been given. Now go back to your checkbook and however big your balance is, and I don't want to know, and some of you are like embarrassed by that look that I can see that. It's okay. But that little bit that God has given you, that little portion, it's not an Uncle Scrooge pile, I guarantee you. None of you here, I imagine. If you are, that's cool. I'd like to meet you afterwards. Anyway, your pile, whatever your bit that God has blessed you with, God has blessed you with that to use, to give, to steward in a way that honors him. And because he's given it to you, you can experience the presence of God, continue to give back and to honor him with that. Now, have you ever saved and saved and saved your money so that you can give something great to someone? Yes, all right? For real, you guys got a nod to help me out here, all right? Bobblehead dolls are cool, all right? You got it, right? Yes, some of you have. Some of you haven't. That's cool. We'll talk to you later, all right? I have. I saved and saved and saved. I was a college student, saving up, because I liked my wife. I liked her. She's really cool. And I'm like, man, I want to be with her forever. You know what I saved up for? A ring. I liked it. I want to put a ring on it, right? I did it before the song came out, when Beyonce was still Destiny's Child and they were still shopping at Christian bookstores that I worked at. It was kind of cool. But anyway, it was cool. I did. I saved and saved and saved so that I could give a great gift. And it's not just the gift that had meaning, but it was the reasons behind the gift that I gave, right? We wanted to give something, so I used my resources. I could have saved all of that cash and bought the first appearance of Spider-Man, but I didn't. It was much more important to be in the presence of Christina for as long as possible because I loved her much. I wanted to be in her presence. When we recognize all that God is and all that God has done for us, our natural response then becomes to lavish great gifts back to him. He has given us much. What has he given us? Do you know? Everything. He's given us life. And if we're a believer, we recognize that the Father sent the Son to be the Savior of the world, to rescue us from just dead-end life, from doing things just because we want to honor ourselves. And, man, it's so easy. You look at life, we could just very easily spend all of our days trying to please ourselves, honor ourselves, and get things for ourselves. That's our natural bent. That's what sin does to us. It makes us believe that we are our own God and that everyone else around us should serve us. And we manipulate people. We begin to say, hey, how can I get that person to serve? You're cool, you're not cool, and if you're cool, I need you to come serve me in some way. And we begin to manipulate people. That's the nature of sin. It's bent us to make us worship ourselves and to make us use people to worship us. And that's not what it's about for us. Man, we have to recognize that God has rescued us from that He's moved us away from that we can now experience a full and meaningful life, which is not a life bent on ourselves. What is it? It's a life bent towards God, to worshiping God, to being in His presence. Because He has everything anyway, we get more when we give back to Him. We want to remember this. Everything that we have is His anyway. Many times we come to a worship service like this, and I don't know if I was raised in church, so I kind of get used to it. I didn't even realize how weird it was. But towards the end of the service, they start passing baskets or plates around. At some churches here, they pass a basket around, and you kind of look around. If you've never been in church before, and you look around, you're like, what the heck is that? What are they doing? And then you see people start putting stuff in it, and you're like, what is this? And I remember reading a story once. These kids that had never been in church, the little basket came to them, and they looked in it, and they're like, dude, there's money in here. We can have lunch today. And they took their tip out and passed it on, right? They didn't know. They didn't understand. It's something kind of weird that churches do. We pass these things, and we expect people to give money to be part of the worship experience. And we're like, man, what is this? The thing about that is it's a practice that's supposed to be a part of our worship. It's a part of how we're responding to God. And some of us, we just get so used to it, and we just kind of see it. We don't even think about it anymore. Just, whatever, God, pass that on, And we don't even respond to that. We don't even think about what we're doing there. It's part of the worship experience of a believer. We're responding to God's blessings by giving back a part of what He has given us to Him. It's not a tip for a pastor's well-done sermon. We'll know that for sure after today, right? It's intended to be an outflow of your heart toward the God whose presence you desire. That's what we're doing when we give. That's why we pass the offering plate or the offering basket. That's why we do these practices, to remind us that the things that we have are not our own. They're to be used for the glory of God, to help to proclaim God's greatness. And so we want to give. David's prayer, now when he comes in here, he prays, and he's just totally, I love this phrase, he ransacks the theological dictionary. He totally stole that. That wasn't me. Ransacks the theological dictionary. He said, man, we got to give so much because this is the God we serve. He's amazing. He runs out of terms for expressing how great God is, how sovereign He is, how boundless His power is, how regal His grandeur is. I mean, he just pours it on. This is the God that we're serving here. And it describes God. God has possession of everything. He has possession of everything in heaven, everything in earth, and all the wealth and all the honor come from Him anyway. God is ruler over all things, and His hands are the strength and power. He can exalt, and He can give strength to anyone. God knows what we're thinking anyway when we give to Him. So when we respond to Him, when we come to this giving time in worship, we're reacting what God has done for us, and we want to give back to Him. He knows our faults. He knows our honorable intentions and our honorable motives. And He searches our motives each and every time we come to Him to give. And He says, why are you giving? What's the motivation here? Why do you think this is necessary? What are you trying to prove when you put money in that offering plate? What are you doing? Are you testing it? He's checking our integrity. He knows what we're thinking. He knows why we give. Are we trying to impress the person next to us? Look, if I jingle lots of coins, they'll think I'm cool, right? It's heavy when I pass it along. That person's going to... Who are you trying to impress? You give just because... You give because it's just a habit that you've always done. You've always given... I give $10 every week, That's just what I do, all right? There's nothing wrong with giving that, but why are you doing that? So believers, the question for us today, if you're a believer, if you're someone who says that you're a Christ follower, the main question that I have to ask you first, are you giving? Are you giving back what God has already given you? That's an uncomfortable question. I can tell by the way you responded. Are you doing it? Because if God has blessed us, we should want to return that back to God, right? We should want to give back. So are you giving? And it's not just money. Okay, I'll kind of give you a little out here. It's also your time and your energy. Are you serving? Are you helping around here? Are you helping us to continue to reach lost people? Are you helping us to continue to see people and let them know how great God is? So proclaiming the greatness of God. Are you giving of your time and giving of your energy? But here in 1 Chronicles, are you giving of your money? So if you're a believer, you have to give. If you're not a believer, and you're here today, a believer, right? I like liver, that's fine. But if you're not a believer, we don't expect you to give these things. It's not the expectation for someone who doesn't trust Jesus. Okay? So don't give. Don't put your money in the offering plate. That's not what we're looking for. All right? If you claim to follow Jesus, though, we expect you to give your time, your energy, and your money. Why? Not out of obligation. It's not a habit. It's about sacrifice. It's about seeking joy. So why do you give? If I gave my wife flowers just because she expected them, how great a gift is that? Some of you guys are like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Just because it's Valentine's Day. Here, babe, I got you flowers. Happy Valentine's Day. How great is that, right? But if we lavish great things on her, the things that my wife likes the best are when I help put the children to bed and when I help her do dishes. I'm like, what the heck? This is weird. I didn't have to buy flowers. But it's the presence. It's the serving to help around the house is much more meaningful to her. And if I just do it grudgingly, I guess I can help, I don't get any points for that. It doesn't work. Same thing when we give to God. If we just give, it's because the preacher told me I had to give money today. You know? Keep it. Not worth it. Nobody wants that. We want to give. We want people to give because they love God so much that they want to give back what he has given to them. If I give my wife my time, my energy, and my money, it's because I love her and I want to be with her. So it is with God. We give because we desire to return to him part of what he's given to us. So it's not about manipulating God, not to manipulate God, but to, okay, good, just making sure you're still with me, right? To honor God. So we're not looking to manipulate him, we want to honor him. To live life, we give back to God. Now when we do this, here's the concern that always comes up. What do I do in the future? I don't know if I'll have enough. Right? Whenever you have to give, the unexpected bill will come up inevitably. Something's going to happen when you start thinking about this and you start making plans to do this. Something's going to happen and it's going to make you worry and make you freak out. And we're going to have to figure out, are we going to trust God enough for our future as well as our present? So we have to have a heart for God's presence in the future, knowing that God will take care of us in the more. Will I have enough? Will God still be there in the unknown? I don't know. But again, we want to have a heart for his presence. It's not to benefit us. It's to honor God. The future of Israel at this time looks exceedingly bright. There's a lot good going on for Israel. Here's what's happening. Verse 20, it says, Then David said to all the assembly, Bless the Lord your God. And all the assembly blessed the Lord, the God of their fathers, and bowed their heads and paid homage to the Lord and to the king. And they offered sacrifices to the Lord. And on the next day offered burnt offerings to the Lord. 1,000 bulls, 1,000 rams, 1,000 lambs, with their drink offerings and sacrifices in abundance for all Israel. Everybody had enough to worship the way they were supposed to. Everybody gave so that everyone could worship. Can you imagine what that'd be like around here? If we gave enough that we were able to allow all people to worship. I mean, we don't have enough seats for all people in here, just so you know. It's just not possible. But can you imagine if everybody from League City came and worshiped with us? Oh, pretty cool. How many people that would be? That's what's going on here. There's enough given that all people could worship. All right? That's what's happening. And they ate and drank before the Lord on that day with great gladness. And they made Solomon the son of David king the second time, and they anointed him as prince of the Lord and Zadok as priest. Then Solomon sat on the throne of the Lord as king in place of David his father. All right? And he prospered, and all Israel obeyed him. all the leaders and the mighty men, and also all the sons of King David pledged their allegiance to King Solomon. And the Lord made Solomon very great in the sight of all Israel, and bestowed on him such royal majesty as had not been on any king before him in Israel. All right, so here's what's cool. You get these two kings have come together finally. David, the warrior king, who comes and he had made peace around him. No, he had defeated all the enemies. There's nobody left that will challenge Israel at this time because David has just wiped them out. He's able to destroy all of his enemies. And then Solomon comes on, and Solomon is now king. And we know if you read further in there, Solomon becomes he also is a great king for Israel. And he's a smart guy. He asked God for wisdom instead of money, and he got all of it instead. And in his wisdom, Solomon was able to make plans that blessed the entire nation of Israel even more. I mean, he's like the economic advisor. Think of your favorite smart guy. Okay, he's smarter than that guy. All right, one of those kind of guys. All right, he just figures things out. And he brings up an era of peace and prosperity to this nation. And so what we see here in these two kings is a future hope, a future assurance with David and Solomon together. Two things, victory over their enemies and a reign of peace, which both of those are essential for the future. You have to have victory over the enemies, and you have to have an assurance of peace, a reign of peace. Now for us, we don't have a David or a Solomon. And I'm definitely not good enough a king to figure out the money side of things to help you figure out your life. It's just not going to happen, right? Remember, I'm an English major. That's like easy major. I know. Some of you look down on it. It's okay. But we do have a solution. Any guesses? Who does this for us? Who has defeated our enemies and gives us a reign of peace as king? Jesus. Yes, I promise the answers I ask, they're always easy. It's Jesus. In one man, these assurances are fulfilled. It's in Jesus. And if you've never trusted Jesus before, the idea of all the stuff we've been talking about, of giving money, time, energy, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't make any sense, and I'm not going to be able to convince you. But here's what I can offer to you. Jesus has died. Jesus has risen from the dead. And according to what it says here in the Bible, Jesus will come again. And when he comes again, he will reign forever. That's the assurance. I have a future assurance that Jesus will reign forever. All right? So if Jesus is going to reign forever, that means that there's nothing after him, right? So what's the last king that I want to serve? Jesus. Thank you. I can't do logic, right? It's there. I want to serve Jesus. So my future assurance, the heart for the presence of God rests on the assurance that Jesus will reign forever. And that's the king that I ask you to come to. I ask that you will allow him to be your Lord, that you will allow him to be the king in your life. You never trusted him, it's not going to make sense, but here's what I ask you to do. Here's what we understand. If we want to have this assurance that Jesus is Lord of our life, that Jesus is in charge of us, and that we can have this future hope, this future assurance, we have to trust Jesus. How do we do that? Well, we admit who we are. We're sinners. Okay? Do you know what a sinner is? A sinner is someone who tries to make themselves better than they actually are. Right? They say, I want you to serve me, so therefore I manipulate you. Or I'm going to do everything in my power to make me the center of the universe. And we become me people. All right? And you don't have to raise your hand. I'm a me person, just so you know, naturally. That's just where I am. I've been there, and that's who I am naturally. I want to be a me person. I want people to serve me. I want people to like me. I want people to do things for me because I'm a me person. Right? So we have to admit that that's who we are first. And then we have to believe that Jesus has a better plan for us. We believe that Jesus, he died for us, he rose again for us, that he's coming back for us. And we believe that Jesus has done everything he said he would do, that if we will trust him, he will take our natural bent to ourselves to make us more for him, to worship him, to make him in charge. And we can trust Jesus in that. So we admit that we're sinners. We believe that Jesus is the one we should be worshiping and following. And we just confess, Jesus is Lord. Right? Jesus is king. He's the one in charge. He's the one that gets all the power and all the honor from now on. So if you are not a believer, I'm asking you to do something much more risky than give your time, energy, and money. I'm asking you to give your life. I'm asking you to trust Jesus instead of yourself. To take a risk and to ask Jesus to be in charge. Sounds totally crazy. Yes. Now, if you are a believer and you've done that already, you're already trusting Jesus, I'm asking you to practice trusting him with your time, your energy, and your money. If your future assurance is that Jesus will be king forever, what do you have to worry about right now? And it's going to be hard. And I guarantee you stuff's going to come up. But are you going to practice? You're going to continue to seek Jesus, to continue to seek his presence above all things. Jesus conquers all of his foes. And at the same time, he establishes a reign of peace for his own people. So this is what we're looking for. We want to be in the presence of the king. And I am not the king. This is not my crown. It's to remind us that we serve the king who will reign forever. The king who will reign forever. And it's the presence of this king that we desire. So to be a person after God's own heart, we look to Jesus. We look to him as our hope. We look to him as our assurance for everything. We look to him with our time. We look to him with our energy. We look to him with our money. We look to him with our life. He is the king whose presence we celebrate, whose presence changes everything. Let me pray for us. God, help us to seek you. God, you promise that if we seek you, we'll find you. So God, help us to do that. Some of us don't understand it, don't get it, and it's confusing. Just ask that you help us to take a step to trust you. Trust that your presence is going to be real. God, give us a heart for you, a heart to know you. Help us to be men and women who are known as people who desire God's presence above all things. God, there's no sacrifice that's too great for that. You've given us much. We want to give back some. Just help us to worship you. Help us to make you the center, the king of our lives in every area, even the few we talked about today.